All right, welcome back to Buffalo Plus. The Bills celebrating as they're now heading to the AFC Championship game. Dan Fates, Mike Catalana, I am Jenna Cottrell. Mike, you were in Orchard Park for this game. Take us through it, because that was quite a game.
I don't think we expected this, right? I mean, the way the Bills defense played last week, not that, it's a different offense, but Lamar's a spectacular player. And the way the Ravens started running the ball at the beginning of this game, you were thinking, oh boy, is this what they're in for? And the missed field goal. And then it stayed that way. And I thought Leslie Frazier had a great plan. I thought he did a fantastic job, and the players responded. And I think in part they responded because Bill's offense wasn't doing anything. Mm-hmm. They needed to, and they really stepped up for him today.
Dan, your thoughts?
It was just insane. I mean, just to see a completely different game than the last 17 that they've played, where the offense was average, couldn't convert a third down. While I thought Josh looked composed, it looked like, more of a leader that way. It just wasn't there. They couldn't run the ball. I thought they were trying to do anything they could to get something going, but it's a really good Ravens defense. And so to have the defense respond the way that they did, they contained Lamar Jackson. They did. You could probably go as far as say they shut him down just because of what they were able to do. Phenomenal effort by a team that apparently they were listening to a whole lot of outside noise, guys.
I mean, maybe we help fuel some of that. I'm not really sure, but you always hear Sean McDermott talk about complementary football. And Mike, you tweeted this out, how that was an example of complementary football. The Bills defense did exactly. They played a hell of a game. The Bills offense did enough. And to see that Taron Johnson play, how game-changing that play was. First of all, what was that like inside of the stadium?
Well, they were loud here. I mean, 6,700 were loud last week, but they really upped their game today. And then when that happened, think about what it was, right? I mean, the Ravens are going in, or they're going to get points, and Lamar's moving them. And not only does he make the play, but go in the distance for the touchdown. And it's, and Lamar is the only guy who could stop him, right? I guess that was the thing. And get the score there. It won the game. It's the biggest play for the franchise in 25 years, right? I don't know what would go ahead of it. They won a playoff game last week. I don't know if there was any single play that would have stood out. The Bills made a play way, way back against John Elway and the Broncos when, they got a pick six returned by Carlton Bailey, a linebacker, in a game that I think was 10-7. And it was a difference in a game. But you're going back, well, you two wouldn't remember it, obviously, but I was here for that one too. So altering game. I was thinking to myself, as loud as it was, what would it have been like if it was 67 instead of 6,700 here? But it was still pretty good. And some of the photos of the Bills bench during that time are just spectacular.
Yeah, it would have like registered on the Richter scale, like that Taron Johnson, if there was 70,000 people there. I mean, we haven't talked about this in a while, but like we joked around about how bad third quarters have been. Like they came out at halftime, they had deferred, they had gotten some stops on defense. And then I really was disappointed with the way that they kind of went into that prevent defense before the half. 3 points felt like 30, and to just kind of let them walk down was really kind of frustrating to me to go into halftime. But then to get the ball, and hats off to Brian Dable again, 11 play, 65-yard drive to score the touchdown was great. And then, like Mike, like you said, the momentum's going back the other way. Lamar is answering with a 66-yard drive of their own. That was 15 plays. And it always looked like that would have been the play where that was a very Billsy play for Lamar to throw that pick. That was the play where the Bills shoot themselves in the foot, and they didn't. And not only that, Taron Johnson admitted that he looked down to take the knee and then looked up and said there was a whole bunch of green grass over to the right of him and knew he only had to beat one guy, and that was Lamar Jackson, and he got a convoy from Trey White blocking him all the way downfield. So absolutely massive play. Josh Allen and the guys talked about after the game, franchise-altering, a guy that Taron Johnson battling injuries, Jenna, a guy that has been, taken out of lineups at times, can't stay on the field. Now he has a pick six against Big Ben in that big game, and at this 101 yards here. Just you can't talk about how much that is the process in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To see that progression, he will never have to play for Wings again in Western New York, that's for sure. But Dan, you talked to him after the game, and I'm curious, like, what he had to say about the play, because he's a guy that, yes, while he can make plays, he's not the guy that you're always expecting to step up and make a game-altering play like that.
Well, Mike, it was last week. He made the really nice play on the fourth down, right? Was that he read and reacted? So it's
play.
Yeah, the third down play.
Forced him into a 4th and 3, and then they went for it and didn't get it. So, he made that play. This one was bigger.
Yeah, and it was interesting.
You're right. It was a big play.
Because Taron's kind of like, he's almost seems to be like he's that physical guy, tackling and stuff like that. But he made an aggressive play. He pretty much sat and read Lamar's eyes, and he said that's what he was taught. And he said Lamar took him right to the ball. And it was funny because I asked him, he goes, Lamar threw me that ball. Like, he threw it at me. He didn't see me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I go, he's a cornerback and not a slot receiver because he probably isn't the best catcher. And I said, how hard are those ones to catch when they throw it right at you? And he's like, I was looking in. It was like, he's throwing this at me. I gotta really look this one in. And it's just a guy that made an aggressive play. That was an aggressive play to go off of his guy, to read the play, Mike, and can't talk about it enough.
Yeah, and Jenna, you talk about the whole process, or you guys did, referencing Taron as a guy who stayed in and hung around and all. How about one of the guys who was here from the beginning of it, before the beginning of it? One of the guys they inherited. I thought Jerry Hughes was great tonight. It was great. It's great with his pressures, energy, all things. The old guy, he's supposed to be the guy that has that much energy. But think about how long he's been waiting for this and what comes up next week. And I thought he was great. And I thought he was a symbol of how that defense played, because let's be honest, he did not play well last week at all. The Colts moved up and down the field on him and had a chance even at the end. But boy, when they needed him this week. And that's what you said about the complimentary football. I'm thinking of it as 120 minutes of complimentary football. Josh and the offense carried them last week and they survived. And then this week, the offense wasn't good tonight. Stephon Diggs was great.
Yeah.
And Allen was okay. Singletary made a few plays there in the third quarter. John Brown caught some balls, hits and misses. But the defense was great at really start to finish.
Well, it was nerve-wracking, and I feel like a lot of Bills fans were like, they can't keep this up because of how well they were playing. Only limiting them to 3 points is outrageous. And I loved the fact that we talked to Jerry Hughes after the game, and I asked him, he's a guy who's easy to root for because he's been in the organization over a decade. He was here before the process started. I'm like, what does this moment feel like? His face lit up and he was just like, I'm so happy I don't have to host an AFC Championship viewing party this year.
That's awesome.
I was like, at first I'm like, I wonder where he's going with this. But it was just so perfect because that's someone who's been waiting and obviously working. And look, he's not a guy that you would expect in terms of him being such a veteran. You wouldn't think he would have as much presence, coming into this season. He's over 30. Was he going to be able to have that much impact? And he has shown that is not a narrative that follows him around because he was played so well this season and gotten so much pressure.
And guys, I think what surprised me the most, maybe not surprised me because I guess we've been waiting for it, the emotion that this team showed after the game. Mm-hmm. And that was very interesting. You knew Taron was going to be excited because of his play, but then you saw Dion come into the Zoom call and he was on a whole nother level. It had seemed like Dion was he said he was shaking. He was still out of breath. And he has been one of the guys that has always come into these Zoom calls after games and said, humble. The locker room's been humble and hungry. We're on to something else. We're not done. Well, we got more to do. And it was very interesting. He said that they were lit, that this was a party atmosphere in the locker room. It was absolutely incredible to hear the excitement from him. And then we got to Josh Allen, and he opened up his thing going, we are excited, but we gotta switch gears.
He's lying. He's right. They got to switch gears. They're very excited. They are very excited, and they should be. And you got to celebrate these, right? This is a monumental win for these players, for this franchise. And look, it's a long time before you put this season in the rearview mirror, but we talked about this before. What's it going to take for this year to be a success no matter what happens going forward? They're at that point now. I mean, they're in the AFC Championship game, right? This team has earned the right to play to go to the Super Bowl. You know, they're going to Kansas City as an underdog or home against Cleveland as a favorite, where other, but with a shot to go to the Super Bowl is already a success. And I think we know, even though they played quality teams the last 2 weeks, they have not played their best. They can play much better than this. Certainly all around they can play better. So we'll see what happens.
It's encouraging.
Well, I guess one more thing. It's, you know, Mike will be like, they're lying. Mike will tell me that they're all lying through their teeth or whatever like that. But it was very interesting when we talked to Josh about it. And even Taron brought it up saying that nobody thought our run defense was any good. And he kind of admitted that, he goes, we kind of haven't been that good this year. He goes, but we took it as a challenge and we stepped up and they got those stops. And then I asked Josh about what it was like I go, you guys just seem like there's more emotion this time around, this win. And maybe I was expecting it to just be like, well, you know, it's just another W because it was the most important game because it was the one right in front of us. And he didn't. And he takes a shot and says that the guys saw what other people were saying on TV. And I said last week that it would be disrespectful if the Bills were less than a 3-point favorite. They were a 2.5-point favorite at home. And Josh said that we were at home and nobody gave us a chance. That's what people were saying on TV. Now that may be a little blown out of proportion, but pretty interesting to hear this team that is always so tunnel focused that they don't let outside noise get in. Pretty much saying like, we heard you and we didn't like it.
Hey, why aren't they just watching us? I mean, we're all picking to win. I mean, seriously, I know they watch. You know they do. But I mean, come on. Maybe we didn't motivate them enough. I guess maybe that's the idea, right?
Not enough bulletin board material. I was just saying, Dan is the only one that's bulletin board material.
That's right, because Dan put that out there. By the way, what did he tell you?
They felt pretty confident they could contain him. Yeah. Contained. That tweet aged like fine wine. It's not an old takes exposed. That was a good tweet.
You need to tweet that. All right, let's unpack Josh's game a little bit because he didn't have his best game. Stephon Diggs was outstanding once again, but he made enough plays. I feel like last week we talked about the defense making some clutch plays, and I feel like this time around, Josh made some clutch plays.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, in the first half, he threw one that Gabe Davis usually catches, and he doesn't. That was a touchdown there. Missed Diggs open deep. I mean, 2019, Josh missed him deep. Yeah. And I know this wind was bad, like swirling as you might expect. And you guys know, I'm looking at the goalpost on the tunnel side and the flags are flying. And on the other side, nothing. So it did swirl. And I think Dermot mentioned today that the wind sort of caught them a little bit and they tried to adjust to it. But that was a bad throw. And he had a few bad throws in the game. And he had a fumble. Like, he wasn't MVP, Josh, but he survived it. He didn't make a big mistake, and he led this team, and that drive was good. Now, Dan, that first half was almost perfection for you. Brian Daboll only called one running play to a running back, near perfection in that first half, because otherwise it was a Josh run, a scramble, and a knee. That was all they did in the first half. So near perfection. And then they screwed it all up by running the ball in the third quarter.
I was already picturing Josh looking like Nolan Ryan after throwing like 160 pitches with like the big ice pack all wrapped around his arm after the game. Because I was like, they're just gonna throw it 50 times. And they're like, who needs a running back? Like, it was funny, like to see other people be like, wow, like Daboll's just really gonna throw the ball every single time.
But hold on, everybody was getting wound up because it was one run play. Do you know how many called runs to the running backs they had in the first half last week? They had 5. So it isn't exactly like this team is playing like Ravens. They throw it. They throw it a lot. And the biggest thing was they didn't have the ball that much in the first half either because the Ravens really controlled the ball. So, Brian Daboll called the deep shot that he overthrew Diggs. He called the one they threw to Gabe Davis. I mean, this game could have easily been 14-3 at half or 17-3 at half. It wasn't. They missed a few shots. Yeah. But to Jenner's point, he came back, made enough plays, and then they just sort of held on. I say held on because the kid who came in for the Ravens had a guy open, and it would have been 6 because Trey Waycott burned. on that play.
Oh, that was so bad.
That was a double move, and he was gone. And if Brown scores there, if that's Hollywood in a touchdown, it's a 7-point game. And then he was driving him down the field at the end. He had a running back drop a ball. So he deserved a little bit better than he got out of his teammates from the Ravens. But the game was, and then the missed field goal, all that, just to make it a little more antsy.
Shocking. Yeah.
But they end up getting the win.
Talking about those field goals, I just want to say that we talk about our wives or our mothers talking to us during the games. My wife wanted to watch the first half with me, which I begrudgingly agreed to. And I was like, I don't watch the game. It's like I'm going to be able to break. She's like, what's a safety? And I was like, we cannot have this conversation right now. Anyway, the kicker Tucker misses the first one. He comes out for the second one and goes, why are they bringing him out there again? He missed the first one. And I go, well, he's the best kicker in NFL history. So I would be shocked if he misses this one. And she goes, okay. And he misses it. And I was shocked.
She needs to watch again next week.
Same thing tonight. I get a text from Jenny, and she, not usually getting in-depth analysis from her. She likes watching the games.
Yeah.
And she said after the Taron Johnson touchdown, that was awesome. There you go.
Love it.
I said the greatest play for the last 25 years of the franchise, and she was on it. She called that play. So
3 words, well described.
That was
awesome. Hey, that Bills win was awesome. Like, Mike, let's put this into context because, we all know how big of a deal it is. But, I feel like after every Bills win, we talk about what does this mean now? What does this mean for the team? Obviously, it means they're going to be in the AFC Championship game. But just for this franchise and for Sean McDermott and what this says about the process, it's unbelievable how quickly they've gotten to here.
Right, because when we look back a few years ago, we talked about it. That first year was, you're in the playoffs, get ready to go home. And they did. And then last year, they should have won, but they didn't. They had some growing up to do. And then this year, a win was what they needed. But this was not just proving you belong, but, you're coming off 13 wins. You're coming off a season where your quarterback plays like that. And there was pressure on them to get to this game, I believe. That doesn't mean it goes away now because, like I said, they could be playing here again next week. But it validates everything they've done so far. They have gotten to this point. But what I keep saying, everybody, is it's great. They're not really ahead of schedule now. This is year 3. They got a lot of stuff done. But we all know the way this conference is. And whether it's Lamar, because Lamar will be back. He's a tough kid. It didn't go well for him tonight, but guys bounce back. But we talked about it. You got Mahomes, you got Deshaun Watson, you got Herbert, you got Lawrence next year. It's your shot now, Jenna. They're the AFC Championship. Nothing is given for next year. Look at what we've seen. They could have lost last week, so nothing is given. You're here. Might as well go to Tampa.
Might as well. You're at 8 straight wins right now. Might as well just make it 10.
Yeah.
It's exciting. All right, let's wrap up here. I know Bills fans are very excited. We'll have plenty more coverage. Again, we're going to be doing live streams all week long as we get ready for the AFC title game. Just even saying that, it's kind of unbelievable.
Well, it's weird. Like, we talked about this before this season, and it's happening. It happened. Yeah. We looked like Mike, you said before the season, you had them at 11 wins and going to the AFC Championship game. And everything's kind of gone according to plan.
Yeah, I know. That's what's kind of scary. And by the way, our friend John DiTullio has a Championship Sunday party every year. And every year, the group that we do with our Bills brothers, with our friend Sal Marana, who's right over to my left, we always talk about the fact that Sal and I always have to hold off and say, we may not be able to be there because we'll be covering the Bills in the championship game, or we could be. And everybody laughed for decades.
Look
now
who's laughing now.
That's it. They're not laughing now.
Yeah.
Playing the long game.
Well, Sal's never laughing, but oh my God, he just told me I was number 1. Well, sort of.
That's Dan loves that. It sounds like Sal. All right, for Mike Catalana and Dan Fates, I'm Jenna Cottrell. Be sure to check out more stuff on BuffaloPlus.com as well as our YouTube page. We'll check you out this week as we get ready for the Bills AFC Championship game coming up. Whew.